So you found the skeleton. How would you tell it's a dinosaur? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to Matt with Maddie. That's what this show is. I never remember. I'm sorry. This is Matt with Maddie 38, unless I got the number wrong, which is also a thing that I do sometimes. Yeah.
Listen, it's okay. I don't know what number we're on. I just know we're in hell.
Yeah, we are a little bit in hell. It's raw Matt time.
Yeah, and if you recall, this is my particular hell because we're touching on lunar craters, which I have a weird amount of knowledge of from my undergrad research, and then also weather and hurricanes, which my PhD is in weather, and it's a hell designed specifically for me.
Yeah, well, that's part of the reason that we picked, or I would say we picked, like you were involved. I picked the video. In case you guys don't know, my guests generally don't have any say in, or no, I don't want to say guests, my co-hosts generally don't have any say in what the video is going to be, apart from just like, yes, I will show up, or no, I will not. So, like, you know, short of Maddie boycotting this, she's subject to the whims of whatever I decide to put on for you guys. So in this case, this is a raw Matt video that went viral, in case anyone doesn't remember from last time. This is a video that I believe has well over 1 million views. And it is the reason that Raw Matt's channel has tens of thousands of subscribers, but also does not reliably get above 1,000 views per video. It's because of this video. It is also a bit risky for us to do this video because it has a lot of copyrighted music, which means we do have to stop fairly frequently. It also increases the chances of me getting a copyright claim on these live streams, which means any extra support that you guys might want to give would be extra appreciated, because the degree to which I will be able to leave ads on is always questionable. Because if it's a little tiny bit of music, I might be able to mute some of it or something. But if it's just various bits scattered throughout the video, they're just going to have to stay in. So, let's see. One other quick thing is, if we do get Bent Gets Pizza, Bent has not been feeling terribly well. He's been having an upset stomach, so that would probably end up being a little bit delayed, but he would still very much appreciate it at a later date. So,
could it be Bent Gets Soup?
I mean, look, if Bent wants me to order soup for him, then I would order soup for him.
I know when I'm sick, what I want is, oh my gosh, I forget what it's called, but it's a Thai chicken soup that's like coconut broth and chicken and veggies and mushrooms. And it's the greatest thing on planet Earth.
Is there any fish sauce in it?
I don't think so. I don't know, though.
Okay. All right.
I probably don't have a refined enough palate to detect that in the broth.
Well, actually, I have some Thai fish sauce, and I also have some garum. And while they're not the same, they are actually fairly similar.
Where did you get garum from?
Amazon, from Spain.
Hot damn.
Yeah, it's a Spanish import.
Awesome.
It's expensive. It was on my wish list. Someone got it for me, because it's like something like $25 or something, and it comes in like a, what is it, like, I think it's like 100 milliliters or something like that. Like, it's not a very big bottle. It's a very small bottle.
Dude, the last time I got, like, the last thing I really, like, was like, this is too much for this small amount, was Luxardo cherries, right?
Oh,
the jar's this big, and it's like $25, but oh man,
they're so delicious.
So good.
They're, I have some Luxardo cherries in the house, and they do not get used often, but they are amazing. But today I'm drinking some hard Baja Blast. What are you drinking today?
I am drinking a Bearded Theologian, made by Cabin Boys Brewery out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. A great local brewery. Yeah.
Nice. All right. Before we get back into it, I do have a couple thank yous to give out. So, I received a package with some Boston baked beans, which are in fact not baked beans. They are in fact candy coated roasted peanuts, in case anyone is curious.
Nice.
And it's the gift card says, "I care about you," from Roshna. Thank you very much, Roshna. I really do appreciate it. I love those things. And then I also got a tortilla press today. Nice cast iron tortilla press, very heavy, very heavy. I love that.
Yes.
And it says a reminder for everyone to hydrate and take time to relax, and if you can afford it, to occasionally treat yourself. Yes, treat yourself every once in a while.
Treat yourself
if you can.
Listen,
and that's from Phil Rivera.
A great treat you can make is that fresh corn tortilla, just a little butter, right?
Mm-hmm.
A little butter and a little like queso fresco right on there, or butter and honey. Ugh, so good.
I was talking to Benton. Originally, the plan for Easter was to just get a ham, but it might turn into more of a like an al pastor with tacos with fresh tortillas kind of deal. Because last year Easter fell on Cinco de Mayo, and so I made lamb tacos, and that was pretty amazing. Yeah, it was absolutely amazing. So, and you know,
I'm going to be out of state for Easter, but it's going to be great.
Also, this year is easy because there's only one Easter, so I get to wish anyone who celebrates Easter happy Easter on one day, and then I'm just done. I don't have to worry about like, 3 weeks later, maybe I should wish like all the Orthodox people Easter. Like, no, it's the same day.
Yeah,
it only happens every once in a while.
Yeah, my church is doing a interfaith meal with it's like Turkish house. So a group of Turkish ancestry Muslims who live in the Oklahoma City area, they kind of like get together for their like Ramadan breaking fast meals. And one of those my church is going to host.
Nice. Those are called iftars, by the way. An iftar dinner.
Thank you. Yeah. So yeah, there's going to be one at our church, and I'm sad that I have to miss it. Because I would love to go to that. I think the food would be amazing.
Probably. There'd probably be some kebabs.
Oof, that sounds so good.
Mm-hmm.
But I will be I'm traveling a lot in the next like month. Yeah, that's a separate trip from going out of town for Easter. Yay.
Well, we've got a few things to read here. Atomic Squirrel says, what's shaking, eggs and bacon? And what's shaking is we're about to do some raw mat, but we are clearly delaying because no one wants to listen to raw mat, but that's okay.
I'm going to get started while you explain the drinking rules.
Fair. Naramda puts for $2 says, you're reading this if you're reading this. I don't get it, but thank you. Ren tax bills are just lines on paper for $1.99 and says, for soup and support. Reminds me, I'm starting to get paranoid because like I told the government, like, just take it out of my bank account. Here's my bank routing and account number and all that. And it's still not gone. And I'm like, guys, take the money. Just stop making me think about, are you going to take the money? And then I'm like checking with like tax professionals who are like, yeah, it can take like 7 to 10 business days. I'm like, oh, okay. So I don't get worried for like 10 days, but then like, now we're coming up on like, it's not that much longer until I'm late on this. So like, yeah. Anyway, Josh McGeese, who's been a member for 60 months, says, welcome all. Be sure to like the stream. Thank you very much. And I didn't even actually read Ren tax bills or just lines on paper. For $1.99 says, for soup and support. Thank you very much. Yeah, if we get to the Bent gets free pizza, I'll double check with him. And if he wants like some chicken soup or something like that. Yeah. All right. So I think we are ready for the drinking rules. Oh, wait. Amazing. Anonymous Pie, who's been a member for 24 months, says 2 years and AIG are still bag of dicks. We'll take a drink because he used the actual bag of dicks emoji. Oh, and there's a Dapper's a professional because I forgot to actually make sure that the drink counting program was properly counting. So here's another one.
Okay, there we go. I'm getting properly like lubricated to go into a raw mat video.
So much about what you just said could have been phrased so much differently.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm really bad at that. Yeah, that was bad.
Yeah. So now that I have that in my brain, let's go over the drinking rules. All right, so first, as you saw, we will take a drink if anyone indicates through Super Chat or membership milestone chat, that's what it's called, that AIG, that's Answers in Genesis, are a bag of dicks. You can't just write that in there, though, because YouTube will censor that. We'll also take a drink if I screw something up with the production. For instance, if I forget to set my drink counter so that it actually increments, that's me making a mistake. We call that Dapper's a professional. Now, that does not count if something else happens, like YouTube crashes, or the internet goes out, or a tornado blows down Maddie's house. That's not on me. Maddie, is there any danger? Is there any danger today of tornadoes?
No.
Okay. All right. What about here?
Not that I know of.
All right.
I didn't check your forecast, though.
I thought you were the one in charge of all the forecasts.
Yeah, I personally control the weather machine for everyone.
That's what I thought. All right.
Yeah, naturally.
We'll also take a drink if any, or we'll start with Matt. If Matt says something so stupid, we just kind of have to take a drink. We take a drink. Now, to be fair with Matt, it has to be pretty darn stupid because otherwise we would just be constantly chugging. So,
Yeah.
We'll also take a drink if Raw Matt gets something factually accurate where he's not just quoting someone else. This actually has to be like his own thoughts. Now, because this is a scripted video, it's a little harder to tell whether or not it's his own thoughts. So, like, we might give him some leniency there. And also, because we cover some of the dumbest stuff here, we tend to get very generous with, well, that was true by the end of these streams. So if someone's like, it's a long way to the moon, we're like, yeah, that's true. Take a drink. It sure is a long way to the moon. So we'll also take a drink if Raw Matt mentions that German group that was so popular in the 1930s and 40s in Germany. Although, to be fair, the extent to which they were very, very popular is exaggerated. It was more that they were very good at consolidating power early on. Man,
yeah.
If only people had been paying attention to that kind of thing. Well, weird.
Almost like we could learn from history.
Don't be silly.
If we didn't have like a 57% adult illiteracy rate.
I feel like that's part of the goal, is a low literacy rate.
It sure is.
Fun times. All right. We also will take a drink if Raw Matt mixes up what we can know about Australopithecus afarensis with what we can know about Lucy specifically just by her skeleton. We call that an ad hominid. We only get one of those per stream. We'll also get one if either Maddie or I can successfully predict where Raw Matt's going next, where it's not obvious. I'm sorry. Let's see. We will also take a drink for Trojan Source. That's if Raw Matt cites a source, which he almost never does, but if he does, and we check the source, and the source not only fails to support his contention, but actively contradicts his contention, we take a drink for that as a Trojan source. Let's see. We will also take a drink if anyone super chats or membership milestone chats anything with any of our kaiju emoji. That's Mothra, King Ghidorah, and Godzilla. Also, I do have some, sometimes those, Mothra or Godzilla might come through audibly. If they do, we'll take a drink for that. That's always a question, is it going to happen? Let's see. I feel like I'm forgetting some stuff. What am I forgetting, Maddie?
You hit Trojan Source, which is my favorite one. What else? I don't know. You know what? Let's just get into it, and if we missed one, we'll find it.
All right. Oh, sorry. I
hey, Mothra comes around audibly? Did we hit that one?
Yes, we just did. That was the last one we did.
Okay.
Sorry, I did bump my mic a little bit there. All right, so with further ado, because we have a few things to read, but then we'll get into this. All right. Naramdaputz for $5 says, I have confused Dapper with the power of formal logic, abbreviations, money, and stupidity.
Yes.
Thank you. Lieutenant Matt the Navigator, who's been a member for 2 months, says, Tartara Matt has thoughts. No, he has... I mean, okay, look, things happen inside what's left of his brain, which I'm sure would look like Swiss cheese on a brain scan.
Yeah.
Calling them thoughts is usually overly generous, but, like, whatever.
Okay. Dapper, I just had an idea. Would a Trojan Source emoji be a horse, but made out of, like, paper?
I very much envy your faith that such an emoji could effectively come across with such a small area of screen that it would actually be able to be read as a horse made of paper and not just a white horse.
But we would know.
We might know, yes.
We would know.
Yeah.
All of the cool people would know, is the thing.
That is true.
And inside outsider knowledge deviation is a thing human brains really like.
Fearmonger says, did you intend for chat to not be on screen tonight? No, let's take a drink, and I will be adding that shortly. But we're going to hit play, and I'm going to add that while we're doing that.
Bring the flood.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Matt had just told us that the craters on the moon were actually formed by ejecta from Earth, and we had just wondered, if that's true, then why is the far side of the moon more heavily cratered than the near side?
No, I have more to say. Look at the image he put up. Because here's clearly what he did. He took an image of the moon and like smoothed the highlands, the lighter parts, right? But his proposition here is that the mare were already formed when we were getting the heavy bombardment.
Yeah.
Absolutely wild. Absolutely wild.
Yeah. Virtually none of this actually makes any sense.
This doesn't make any sense because we talked about this last time. Crater density is a form of relative dating, right? So we know that there's a higher crater density on the highlands, which means that those are older sites than the mare. I'm so upset. I think he just took like a Photoshop brush of like blend and went like this.
It does look like that. Which I mean, let's be honest, that's probably what I would do if I were making this graphic too. I just wouldn't make this graphic because it's really, really dumb.
It's very dumb.
Also, O Fortuna is copyright is not copyright protected. However, this version of O Fortuna has a performance copyright. I know because I've used it before. So this is indeed some of that copyrighted music that we can't play very much of.
Yeah.
So yes, because I checked, it was like, is O Fortuna public domain? Yes, the music is. But if someone performs it, that performance is still copyrighted because music has two kinds of copyright, in case you guys didn't know. There's the copyright on the actual like music, like the notes, the words, the melodies, all that stuff. But then there's a separate performance copyright. So for instance, that's why Taylor Swift went around re-recording her old songs, because she maintained the copyright to the actual music, but not the performances on her old albums. Which is why now, if she re-records them, she gets both on that new release. So, I don't know, Dapper Dinosaur channel, come for the creations debunking, stay for the Taylor Swift lore, I guess.
Yeah, stay for the copyright law.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Bigcore says that their membership chat is languishing. I did miss it. Bigcore, who's been a member for 25 months, is at the Emulate level, says AIG are a satchel stuffed with full of one-eyed trouser snakes. AIG's bag of dicks. And I hope Bilbo comes by today. You want Bilbo to come by today? I mean, he might. It's certainly a possibility. All right, here we go.
Wild.
Okay, another thing is, Matt. I'm talking to Matt here. You've mixed the bass too high, so it's clipping in the audio file, which means it's just a bunch of nonsense. If you're gonna clip your audio, like, just don't clip your audio, man. When you drop it into your video editor, check. Most video editors will give you some indication if parts of your waveform are going above the maximum. Lower the volume in your video editor until it's below that threshold. Now, if like it occasionally peaks, it's not always that big of a deal. Like sometimes when I download a video, the person talking is generally very quiet, but every once in a while their audio spikes up. And if it only happens once or twice for very short times, I don't always fix it. But if there's a big section where it's all just peaking, I go in and I lower that. You can do that too, Matt. It's okay. Flavius Josephus, the first century Jewish historian, for $5 says, AIG's academic literature is the antiquity of the Jews-sized bag of unspecified parts of the human person. And I will take a drink. Maddie, are you aware of the antiquity of the Jews meme?
Yes, I very much am. I almost never catch that Saturday stream live, but I am a religious VOD watcher.
Oh, good.
Okay, I want to talk about what's happening here on the moon and why it's nonsense. Can I just rant for a second?
Yes, but only after I read the next super chat, because another one has come in.
Okay.
All right. Lieutenant Matt the Navigator from 499 says relative dating is alleged to be the practice. All right, sorry. Relative dating is alleged to be practiced in West Virginia and is practiced to an absurd degree in Pakistan. I'm just. Yep. I'm just gonna say, yep, that's a thing. Okay, Maddie, go ahead and rant.
Okay. So there's so we think about how the solar system formed under the like nebular hypothesis, right? Which is the standard model for solar system formation that we have. It's pretty good, right? Mm-hmm. It explains lots and lots of things. It has a high predictive power. It's a very robust hypothesis or theory, if you will, though it's still in the world of hypothesis right now. So everything starts as dust in a protoplanetary disk that is in a gaseous state as it's orbiting the protostar. The star forms. This gas starts to sort of like mix together, forming bigger and bigger things. And then we get additive collisions. So two rocks slam into each other and stick together. And then we start getting all of these like protoplanets, right? But and then the composition of those planets is a function of their distance from the sun, because that is a function of the temperature at which different elements and different molecules will precipitate out of the protoplanetary disk. That's that in like 30 seconds or less. So what you end up with are a lot of, like, you don't just get the current 8 planet, right? You get a bunch of other stuff of different sizes too, right? And that all that stuff doesn't just go away immediately. So in the early solar system, there is a lot of debris and big pieces of debris flying around. And that is why we get such heavily cratered surfaces, right? Where we don't see much stuff flying around these days, right? There's not an impact happening on Earth every day, right? Big impacts are pretty rare. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah. 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 Yeah, well, and here's the other problem, right? Is that so the highlands on the moon, so the far side of the moon, right, is saturated, right? So there's effectively a crater covering the entire area. There's no empty space, right? Which is like in terms of relative dating, that's as old as it can be, right? Things that are saturated may not be the exact same age.
I was muted apparently.
But we can't tell. And we associate this with what's called the late heavy bombardment. And I think I mentioned this last stream. I did look up the year range that this happened last time. I was wrong. I think I said 2.9. That was way off. It's 4.1 to 3.8 billion years ago is when the late heavy bombardment was. And basically after that, after the late heavy bombardment, the rate of cratering dropped off significantly. And here's what's important about this, right? Here's what's important. The Mercury's surface is saturated with craters.
Mm-hmm.
Parts of Mars, Pluto, parts of Pluto, except for the heart that's soft. That's a weird thing. asteroids, right? Any part of Jupiter's moons that are right, like all of the asteroids in the asteroid belt, all of their surfaces are like saturated, right? Which means if the young Earth creation explanation for why the moon's surface is heavily cratered, in fact to saturation, right, is caused by ejecta from the Earth, that means that so is Mercury, right? So is Mars, so is Pluto, right? So the Earth has to spit out enough ejecta, not only to hit the moon, but to hit all of these other planets as well, right? I don't even know what that mass would be, but like,
I know that people have calculated it, and it's somewhere like 2 or 3 Earth masses.
Yeah, it's insane. And also, you've got to get stuff all the way out to Pluto. That's really hard.
I actually worked on that too, and I mean, these were all very, very much back the envelope calculations, right? But I was just trying to come up with like roughly what like order of magnitude of energy would be needed to put this much math out to these different orbital distances and whatnot. And I mean, it was, again, very rough, but like, I'm pretty sure I was within about the right order of magnitude, and it's basically well past the gravitational binding energy of Earth, which makes sense since you're ejecting like 2 to 3 Earth masses of matter away from the gravity well of Earth. So of course it would be above the gravitational binding energy of Earth. In case you don't know, the gravitational binding energy of Earth is basically the energy it would take to turn Earth into the Alderaan rubble field, right? That's how you can think of that number. If you injected that much energy into Earth, you could make it fly apart into a cloud of little tiny bits of debris.
Yeah. So this is nonsense. And like, Dapper, I know you're saying this is just a back of the napkin calculation. I would kill for most YEC arguments to come with a back of the napkin calculation.
Right? Yeah, right? Like just give me like a rough like order of magnitude kind of number, right? Like, are we talking megajoules, kilojoules, petajoules? Yeah. And it turns out often we're talking about like petajoules. That is in fact often where we are.
Yeah, that's like the reason that like I tried to touch hydroplate theory a couple of years ago, but when I say that there's no good explanation of it, I mean there's nothing with even a back of the napkin order of magnitude calculation explanation. Like there's no math.
Yeah.
And past
Maddie, there's a good reason for that.
Refused to do the math for the young Earth creationists, right? Like I
myself and others have, and I can tell you why there's no math. It's because the minute you put any even remotely realistic numbers on any of this, you realize, oh, there just wouldn't be an Earth. In fact, there might not even be a solar system as we know it.
Yeah.
All right, so I did put in a super chat goal. If we can get 20 of the teal or higher super chats by the time the timer runs out, which is in 53 minutes, Maddie, I'm going to give you a special gift. We can stop talking about Raw Matt with about a half an hour left to go, and we can just nerd out about TTRPGs. But only if we hit the goal.
Guys!
Yeah.
Guys!
It's up to chat. If chat gets us there, then you get to nerd out about TTRPGs for like the last quarter of the show.
I have so much to say!
Domesticated Oldness of the Jews Python for 200 Argentinian pesos says, what Dapper is suggesting, I believe, is that Noah was rebel scum. Yes, Noah was definitely rebel scum. That is, in fact, accurate.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. All right, here we go. Matt, stop. Stop it, Matt. I have to keep pausing so it doesn't play too much of O Fortuna.
I got to hear this performed live, which was really cool. If you want to keep playing, I'll talk over O Fortuna.
I mean, I will also say, like, this is clearly not something he made right here. This is someone else's CGI moon. Which, by the way, if you want to make a CGI moon, NASA has a CGI moon kit on their website that has high-definition textures that you would need to make a CGI moon, including height maps, diffuse maps. I think there's even, like, a roughness or a glossiness map or something, which doesn't vary a whole lot, but, like, whatever.
I helped make that.
Oh, did you?
I worked on the topographical map that goes into that.
That's so cool.
That was part of that was my undergrad research.
Well, thank you, because I have used that before. And of course, the great thing is the flat earthers take that as evidence that NASA is faking space because they have a CGI moon kit. And why would they have a CGI moon kit if not to fake the moon? And okay, in the one case, it is kind of true that it does exist so that you can fake the moon, but it's a resource for artists. It's like, what would you prefer that NASA not give assets to artists? Because
would you prefer NASA not make its data freely available to the public because it's a taxpayer sponsored entity?
Yeah.
So the data is freely available to the public?
And in this case, it's literally just we made it available in a format that CGI artists can make use of without having to go through all sorts of like data conversion processes. Because you know what I don't want to do is I don't want to download like raw height map data from a satellite and try to implement it in Blender. I really don't want to do that. Yeah.
It has, when I left the project in 2012, it had over 1 billion points of data.
Ooh, yeah, I would not want to deal with that.
No.
I want a TIFF file.
Side note,
which they gave me. They gave me a TIFF file.
Nice. The thing I really want, I want a 3D printed moon with the Lola data.
I mean, you could have just asked. I'd give you the STL file. I can make the STL file. I can give it.
And I do have an Elegoo Mars.
Okay. Yeah, I can give it whatever, like, what is it, like, height exaggeration you want, because if I actually did an accurate 3D printed moon, it would basically just be below the resolution of your printer to print any of the surface detail. So, you know, I would obviously exaggerate the height, but yeah, I can do that.
I would love that.
Okay.
Actually, well, if you want to get me my birthday's at the end of the month. If you want to get me a birthday present, that STL file would be great.
Okay, note to self. Put in a high definition sphere in Blender and then just slap the height data on it.
Yeah, I'd love it.
All right. Goop23, who's been a member for 32 months, says, drink for Maddie helping make CGI moon. Yeah, we'll drink for that. Cheers, Maddie. You're helping NASA fake space. By gathering data from real space, which is confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, that's another point.
Like any good con man.
If NASA is faking space, why are they gathering data? Where are they getting the data from? From space. Lieutenant Math Navigator for $4.99 says, Maddie just pulled a landed null. She did, actually. That's true. So
that, I feel honored.
Yeah, a while back I was pointing out that
comparison.
Like I try to avoid division in whenever I'm getting Blender to do any kind of procedural stuff, which is basically just a graphical version of like Blender's programming language. And then Landon was like, oh yeah, division is slower because of a decision I made back in like the 60s or something when I was designing the computer architecture that modern computers use. And I was like, of course it was your fault. Of course.
Of course it's your fault, Landon.
He's like, yeah, that's why you should probably multiply by the reciprocal anytime you actually need to divide. I'm like, yep, okay, that's what I do, but it's good to know.
Good to know.
Yeah, I love to multiply by fractional numbers. Do it all the time.
Yeah.
Josh McGee's for $5 says, I was in the chorus for a performance of Carmina Burana. It was super fun. That does sound fun. I was not.
That does, yeah.
I was in the choir once for a Messiah sing years and years ago.
Ooh.
And people, I think I've mentioned this before. No, I've definitely mentioned it before, but every time I do, people are surprised. I was also once in a church choir that sang about a third of the time in Arabic.
That's very cool.
Yeah. And then Larkwright for £5 says, thank you. Well, you're welcome. I am not entirely sure what I'm being thanked for, but I'm glad it helped. All right, here we go. It's just the moon.
I'll just sing over it.
It's just the moon.
We also have evidence for this as well. Ask yourself,
do we?
Where was Earth's oldest rock found?
I think it was Antarctica or Australia.
Well, and the oldest rock isn't the same as the oldest mineral.
Yeah.
Because we found a rock that's like 4.1 billion, I think, but the oldest mineral is like 4.4.
That sounds like it's plausible. Yeah, because the oldest mineral would probably be like a zircon from like a really long time ago, but that's going to be embedded in a rock that's younger, almost certainly.
Exactly.
Domesticated Oldness of the Jews Python for 200 Argentinian peso says, NASA be projecting CGI moon on the firmament like Gotham calling Batman. Question is, who is NASA calling? Well, Moon Man, obviously. Or maybe it's just Moon Knight. Maybe that's actually their secret Moon Knight signal. And he comes running whenever the moon is out, which means that he's very, very busy for about half the month, every single month.
Yeah.
That's right. It was found on the moon during the Apollo mission.
Wouldn't that make it a moon rock?
Not necessarily. Okay. Like, the only reason we know we have, like, we have, like, asteroids from, like, pieces of rock from Mars that have been, an asteroid hit Mars, it sent ejecta into space, and it came and it hit Earth, right? So this statement isn't implausible, because we can tell the, like, composition difference between moon rocks and Earth rocks and Martian rocks, right? They're different compositionally. Do not ask me the details on that. I am uncertain, but I know that the moon is nearly compositionally identical to specifically Earth's mantle, not its crust. So it is perfectly possible that, like, there are pieces of Earth, like ejecta, that, like, a few times in Earth's history, right, an asteroid has hit Earth and ejecta went up to the moon.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
like,
that seems plausible.
That's fully plausible.
Okay.
And so I don't know about the specific truth of this statement, right? But it's plausible.
Okay. Well, there you go. Kent, no other Kent H. Halstead. Thank you. Sorry, no, let me get that right. Kent, no, the other Kent H. Halstead. For $4.99 says, as a video game level designer, there is not enough time to manually recreate the entire moon surface, recreate the moon procedurally. I mean, yeah. If I were to make an area of the moon for, like, a video game or, like, just a scene, I probably wouldn't actually use NASA data. I'd probably use Gaia, because I have it. I might actually unlock the expensive version. But I would just use, like, their crater primitive and mess around with, like, the seed and maybe a few mild erosion settings, because there isn't a lot of erosion on the moon, but there's not literally zero. So yeah. Fate Degree, Queen of Supernatural Gemuology, for $5 says, thank you, Dapper, for being a dinosaur, and thank you, Maddie, for being you. I can have clean air in... can I have clean air in Texas now? No. That is...
I would love to give that to you. I would love it.
Yeah, but you just can't.
Oh, guys, I'm really excited. There's a book. It's not coming out until, like, September, but it's by Susan Solomon, who's a professor at MIT. She's absolutely amazing. But it's about, like, climate action, right? Like, what we can actually do from, like, a science perspective. And so I think I pre-ordered it, but I'm actually really excited to, like, read that and maybe try to, like, distill it and do a stream or something about it. Because I think that would be really, really good.
Nice. A Lieutenant Math and Navigator.
From, like, a science perspective, not necessarily, like, just a policy perspective. You know?
Lieutenant Math and Navigator for $4.99 says, there's also that manhole cover that got accelerated beyond orbital velocity or its molecules. Yeah, it did not go into orbit as a manhole cover, I'm sorry to say. It was going fast enough to disintegrate. So it was a shower of, like, little atoms and maybe flecks of metal that left the Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The evidence that the global flood brought on the Ice Age is abundant.
Maddie, as a person who knows a thing or two about climatology, on a level of, like, 0 to 10, how abundant is the evidence that the Ice Age was caused by the global flood?
Ice Age. -5.
Okay. Cool.
One such example is rapid freezing. Reports describe the apparent near-instant freezing of...
Reports. Okay. This is like when on Ancient Aliens they say, some researchers suggest. That doesn't mean anything. Yeah. That just means some asshole said a thing. Okay, let's see. Fish in Liglictica Valley, Kolima... What is this source? Y.N. Popov, New Finds of Pleistocene Animals in Northern USSR, Nature from 1948. Okay. This is the former Soviet, not the British journal Nature. Okay, so Matt, you want me to take you seriously and go look up a Russian language scientific journal
Yeah.
From 1948 USSR.
Yeah. And also, okay. A river, they found an ancient river with fish frozen inside of that. Cool. Why does that mean it was a rapid freeze?
Because if it's a slow freeze, then how did the fish get frozen?
It does not follow. I don't, right? Like, hey, you could imagine several scenarios, right, where you have a body of water with fish in it, and the fish have nowhere to go, right? They're stuck in this body of water, and that body of water then freezes.
No, Maddie, if it was slow, they would leave.
If it what?
If it was slow, they would leave.
If it was slow, they would leave. What if they couldn't leave?
Well,
what if it was a lake? What if it was blocked?
Then they would just leave through tunneling. They're burrowing fish.
Yeah, they're
burrowing. Yes, they would tunnel out, come up on the snow, flop to the next river, and then dig under and get under the ice of the next river, and be fine. That's a
Also, right, like crocodiles in the American South will freeze themselves into frozen rivers
with their noses sticking out.
So let's do a little thought experiment here about how this could happen without rapid, right? Like day after tomorrow level rapid freezing, right? You have a fish and it lives in an area where the top layer of water freezes every winter, and they have evolved to survive in that environment. Great. Then we have an ice age, and over a period of time, that is like not instantaneous, but maybe too fast for those fish to adapt, right? Or maybe these are the fish that didn't adapt. I don't know, right? Maybe that for how much that river freezes every year gets deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe this was right. Like, you don't have to have rapid freezing, because you also, like, don't you see? I don't know anything about fish, but don't you see fish that live in frozen environments? Like, their metabolism drops, right? And they kind of just are pretty still.
Well, it depends on exactly which fish and exactly which environment. But yeah, there are fish that can go into a state of much lower metabolism, much lower activity, and they do it each winter. And there have been times when lakes are frozen solid and the fish died.
Yeah.
And they were frozen in the water, because where else would they be? And it doesn't have to freeze especially fast, because like you said, there might not be anywhere to go.
Yeah, like where they this is so one, we can even suppose this quote that's on screen and even that like cartoon, we could suppose that is all true. Nothing in what has been presented here suggests or requires rapid freezing, right? Day after tomorrow level rapid instantaneous freezing. Also, why would a flood imply rapid freezing? No one has explained that to me.
Maybe he will,
especially if we have worldwide hurricanes, because those are tropical conditions.
No, this is sorry. This is a after the flood, but caused by the flood kind of a thing.
Why did it get cold?
I don't know.
Okay. Because the answer, right, is Milankovitch cycles. Periodic changes in Earth's obliquity, eccentricity, and precession. And that when the Earth's orbit is more is particularly elliptical, we're fairly circular right now, when it's more elliptical, and when our swings from winter to summer are bigger, right? So we have higher inclination angles. Then we tend to have ice ages, right? And we see indications of periodic ice ages throughout history.
So what you're saying is we should actually just strap really big rockets onto Earth to increase its eccentricity to solve climate change.
No, we need to get big comets just full of ice, drop them in the ocean, just like on Futurama. Perfect plan, no notes.
All right, we got a few super chats here. Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $4.99 says, does abundant mean completely absent, or do I just not speak English? In fact, it's raw Matt who does not speak English very well. Lieutenant Math the Navigator.
He speaks Pre-Yiddish.
Yes, obviously. Lieutenant Math the Navigator for 199 says, USSR, get book title, Ibid. And then Rana Unwelcome Nuance K for $5 says, Matt is such a cognito hazard that the stream crashed my computer for 20 minutes. Ugh. With an attempt at a Kent emoji. And then Mapleson, who's been a member for 5 months, says, if the Ice Age came after the Flood, doesn't that make the kangaroo problem worse? I would say yes, it does. I would also say that Raw Matt does not think, and so has no idea that that's the case. And actually, so yeah, I saw like 25 people drop off of the stream from watching all at once, and then just recently come back. I think it wasn't just you, that made that had that happen, Rana. Because yeah, seriously, I saw the number go from about 100 to like in the 60s, and then just jump back up recently. So I think there was a thing, which I'm not going to take responsibility for. Also, I'm going to take a drink for this whole like, if fish freeze, therefore flash frozen. No.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Rose says, the Lysenkoist USSR, a reliable science source. Sarcasm. And that's another thing, right? We gotta remember, this is Lysenkoist Soviet Russia. This is not the kind of place where I would trust any of the science coming out. Because they were...
Do you want me to see if I can find this paper?
I mean, not if it's in Russian.
True. New finds. Nice to see it. All right, let me just Google Scholar it real fast.
All right. But yeah, like, in case you guys don't know, the Soviet Union was really big into what they saw as the political implications of science. And if they thought that those political implications lent too hard towards capitalist ideas, they just kind of shut it down. So that's one of the reasons they didn't like evolution, was because they thought that the whole like competition that was part of survival of the fittest or natural selection sounded too much like the capitalist ideal of competition between businesses, and that nature was actually going to have more class consciousness, which is why they then started doing things on the advice of Lysenko, like not worrying about spacing out their crops, because the crops will have class consciousness and not steal nutrients from each other. Turns out that was bullshit, and a whole bunch of people starved. Yeah. So... Oh, everything froze, says Unwelcome Nuance, not just YouTube? Alright, well, I don't know. Alright, here we go.
Of a flowing river found buried in the frozen ground with...
Matt, how do you know it was a flowing river if it was all ice? Was it a glacier? Probably not, because glaciers aren't made up of, like, bodies of liquid water that are frozen and have fish in them. Glaciers are compacted snow. So unless he has some snowfish hanging around that I don't know about that live in Russia, yeah, something about his telling of this is nonsense. Domesticated oldness of the Jews.
Also, Y.N. Popov? Okay, sorry, I'm going. I can't find this paper.
It might not exist. So here's another thing. I'll talk about it after I read the super chat. Domesticated oldness of the Jews Python for 200 Argentinian pesos says, say with accent, in Mother Russia, the heat problem freezes fish. And there you go. I hope that was enough of a of an accent.
That's brilliant.
So another thing is,
assuming that's the title, it does not come up on Google Scholar, which is impressive.
I also wouldn't be surprised if there's no electronic archive of the Soviet Nature Journal from the 40s. So here's the thing, right? Matt didn't look this up himself. Matt didn't learn Russian, find an old copy of the Soviet Nature Journal from the 40s. That's not a thing that happened. Here's what almost certainly happened. He found a different creationist who was using this source, and he just yanked it. And I know that that's a thing that creationists do a lot for a very specific reason. Creationists have in the past published collections of quote mines, so that you don't even have to go to the original source. They'll give you their mined version, often including misquotes in their collections, and then you can just grab from there, which means that if you know what's in those various collections of quote mines that creationists have published, both online and as hard copies, you can use the techniques of textual criticism to see... Oh, there's Mothra. Take a drink for Mothra.
Cheers.
You can use the techniques of textual criticism to trace back the ancestry of their quote mine to see who actually originally checked the source and got it wrong. Because you can trace errors and changes in the quote through the various like strata of creationists taking quotes from each other. So, yeah.
Fish frozen in place. Rivers do.
As opposed to what, Matt? Where if a river froze slowly or a lake froze slowly, where would the fish be? I mean, presumably towards the bottom, but like that's in
also,
place.
The top of this could be gone.
Yeah, that's another thing, right? Like the top could have eroded away if it's covered in like dirt, which it seems to be. Like,
yeah.
It's one of those things where
this
like
is a really cool find, but
if it exists,
doesn't seem to imply what he's saying it implies.
It reminds.
And again, I am having trouble. Like, I mean, I'm doing a very fast Google search, so I'll stop.
Right.
But like, and I don't know that this is a real thing.
No, I suspect it's. I suspect there's a very good chance that something like this exists, but that it doesn't say anything close to what's in this quotation mark. I just lost my train of thought. Oh, it reminds me of when creationists say like, "Oh, this isn't a transitional fossil; it's fully formed." What would it look like if it weren't? And I've never had a good answer to that. What would a half-formed transitional fossil look like? Would it look like a ball of chewed-up chewing gum? Like, what would it look like? I don't know.
Yeah.
Do not freeze instantly. They freeze from the top down.
Okay.
The ice insulates the flowing water below, which prevents complete freezing.
Unless it gets too cold, Matt. But it being cold doesn't mean the river is going to freeze over completely. It just means it's cold enough that the insulation isn't enough to prevent that. And also, I don't believe you about this river. You know.
Yeah.
Here's another great report. 50 oxen were found, trapped in a remote frozen river. They were found attempting to cross when...
Okay. This is from M. Huck, Recollections of a Journey Through Tartary, Tibet, because there's an H in there, and China during the years 1844 and 1845 and 1846, Volume 2, New York, D. Appleton and Company, 1852, pages 130 and 131. Maddie, do you think Raw Matt found a book from 1852 and then dutifully noted this down so that he could include it in his video?
Absolutely not.
No, absolutely I don't think so either. And also, I want to point out, this is a travel log. Travel logs are notoriously unreliable because you know what helps you sell travel logs? All sorts of hyped up nonsense.
Yes.
So,
hyped up nonsense.
Travel logs are basically not a source that you should ever trust in any capacity for anything.
Yeah.
In fact, travel logs are often written by people who never went to the places that are in the travel log that they say they went to.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know what the peer review process is for a travel log? There isn't any.
There isn't one.
A publisher says...
That's like ancient Rome.
It does.
Right? Like, that's how fiction is invented.
And the thing is, your publisher doesn't care. They're like, will this sell? The book publisher should not be relied upon to be like the fact checker. Because the other thing is, in 1852, if I lied about a herd of frozen bison in a river,
who's gonna check?
How are you gonna go to Siberia and check as the publisher?
Yeah.
Like if I was like, hey Maddie, I think you should publish this book for me. You have a publishing company, and you look through and you're like, that seems iffy. Are you gonna buy yourself a boat ticket to Russia so you can take a train through Siberia to check for frozen bison?
No, they wouldn't. Wouldn't they not be bison?
Oxen. I don't know.
Bison are North American, right?
Yeah, that's true. So they'd be buffalo or something, or yaks or something. I don't know.
But they'd be buffalo. They can be buffalo.
Yeah. So like,
but
no.
Yeah, no. I'd be like, actually, how can you make this even more dramatic so we'll sell more books?
Exactly. Lieutenant Matt the Navigator from 499 says, you keep using that quote. I don't think it means what you think it means. Domesticated Oldness of the Jews for 200 Argentinian pesos says transitional fossils are found next to a vial of testosterone, obviously. Hey, some transitional fossils are taking estrogen because it depends on which way they're going. Lieutenant Matt the Navigator from
I got you explain to my sister today the whole transgenic mice thing.
Oh no. That's not transgender mice because we're...
Right. Yeah, she was blissfully unaware of the whole thing because she's kind of like, I have to like do my job and I can't engage too much with this or I'm going to lose my mind. And I'm like, fair. Yeah. Listen, She's doing God's work. She's a pediatrician in rural Mississippi, right?
Oh, yeah, geez.
Yeah. So she's already in the thick of it. She doesn't need to be thinking about like funding stuff, you know?
Yeah. In case you guys are wondering, trans is actually from a Latin preposition that means across. And so it ends up in a lot of places that have nothing to do with trans people, like transistors, transformers, transgenic. Transmontane is a fun one. It means across a set of mountains. Yeah.
That is a fun word. I like it.
It turns out that you can't just look and see that there's a sequence TRANS and then just decide that it's about trans people. That doesn't work, actually.
But Dapper, they found TRANSG.
Oh, there was a G there, yeah. And an E.
There was a G there.
And an E afterwards. Yeah.
That's most of the letters.
That is most of them. Jeez. I hate this timeline. Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $4.99 says, for such big fans of unchecked capitalism, they seem to fail to understand that people will do things for money. I mean, I do things for money. Like, quite frankly, if I didn't get money from these shows, I wouldn't do them quite as often. I'd still do them.
Yeah.
They probably wouldn't be twice a week.
Yeah.
The river froze instantly. It froze them in...
It didn't, though.
It didn't,
like,
though.
There's not evidence of that, though.
Place, alive, and they were unable to escape. How could a river freeze so quickly that a large, powerful...
Okay, so I'm sorry. Is he saying that this group of buffalo froze in a river and that our author here found them still alive, frozen in place? Because that's what it sounds like.
That is what, but I don't think that's what he's saying. I think he's saying they went into the river and it was liquid, and while they were in the river, they were frozen in place and still alive.
He's definitely saying that, but like, is he saying that the author found them in that condition, frozen and still alive?
I don't think that's what he's saying.
Okay, maybe. Domesticated Oldest of the Jews Python for 200 Argentinian pesos says, what do you mean all of these Gauls are trans? Vance to Roman, probably. Oh, yeah.
I'm just drinking every time a super chat makes me laugh.
That's perfectly fair. I'm going to take a drink for like, hey guys, this travel log from 1850, that's pretty good evidence.
Yeah, because the Ice Age was totally still happening in 1850. Though, okay, technically we're still in an Ice Age because we still have permanent glaciers on Earth. But like,
we mean a glacial maximum.
We all know right, we're not at the glacial maximum. Yeah.
Yeah. Vince O'Connor for $9.99 says Transylvania. Yeah, that is. Yeah. You know what though? If it were like, hey, what if we just made Transylvania like the exclusive domain and like under the control of trans people? Maybe we could do that.
I love that.
Although I feel like that would disenfranchise a whole bunch of cis Transylvanians, which is I'm not a big fan of disenfranchising people. Or at least disenfranchising people for no fault of their own. Like, I'm open to arguments that like certain crimes should cause you to lose like your right to vote or something. Like, okay, I generally don't agree, but I'm at least open to the arguments. But like, just come in and be like, no, you don't get to vote anymore. Yeah. So I guess it's more of a fun idea for a story.
That's very clearly been used as a tool for voter suppression for Black and brown people.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, let's increase our policing in Black and brown neighborhoods, right? Arrest them more frequently, accuse them of more crimes, right? And then also take away, like, it's a tool of voter suppression. Right?
Yeah, I'm generally, I'm not in favor of it. All I'm saying is, I can see that people could make good faith arguments in favor of that position. I've yet to find one I actually agree with, but I have seen people do what I think is a good faith argument for it.
I guess I agree with you. I could see a situation in which like temporary removal of voting rights for certain crimes.
Yeah, like maybe if you're currently in prison for a felony of a like certain level, then maybe that might work. But generally speaking, I'm a big fan of if you're subject to the laws of a place, you should get a say in the laws of that place. And yes, I would in fact include people who are there legally but aren't at some level of citizenship or something. if you're subject to the laws of a place and you're paying like taxes to that place, that you should get a vote. And if it were up to me,
absolutely agree. Like permanent residents, especially permanent residents, should be allowed to vote.
Or I'd say if they just don't have to pay state or federal taxes, that could also be an acceptable option.
Yeah, I mean, like, we were pretty much founded on no taxation without representation, right?
Mm-hmm. Which is also why I would say that any resident of Washington, D.C. should be exempt from all federal taxes.
Yeah.
Because they get one electoral college vote and no representation in the legislature. So
yeah, they shouldn't pay federal taxes.
They should not. Yeah. They should be in the same position when it comes to federal taxes as Puerto Ricans, who do not pay federal taxes. So yeah. In fact, actually, if you move to Puerto Rico, that's actually one of the easiest ways to get out of paying federal taxes. Because if you move to, say, Germany, they're still going to come after you for federal taxes.
Wild.
Yeah, the U.S. is one of only a very small number of countries that charges income tax to expatriates from the country.
That's wild, but not billionaires.
Well, technically they are charged. It's just they find lots of loopholes. And also, if you want to relinquish your citizenship, it'll cost you tens of thousands of dollars to the IRS as a one-time lump sum.
Wild.
Mm-hmm. Isn't America great? Joe White has gifted five Dapper Dinosaur memberships. I know what I'm talking about. We're gonna take 5 drinks. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $4.99 says all the Gauls from south of the Alps are banned from Twitter, from Shitter. Then Rail Gatubolo says, "Oh, what is this? Like Hawaiian? Kuti chiki kunu kuna hala ripa pichi kuna chupa." I have no idea what language that's supposed to be. I will take your drink though, because I'm pretty sure it's AIG is a bag of dicks.
Cheers.
All right. Oh, Unwelcome Nuance K says taxation without representation is in fact a DC license plate option. As well, it should be. Look.
Beautiful.
During its 200 whatever years of existence that ended last year, the United States has frequently failed to live up to its various ideals. And I don't think anyone would disagree with that. What was Quechua? See, I don't know Quechua. I know a few facts about Quechua. Like, Quechua doesn't have irregular verbs. So there you go. Yeah. You can, in fact, learn a natural language with no irregular verbs. All right, we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to refresh this drink here, and we will be right back after the break. And we only have, let's see, we have 18 and a half minutes, but we only need 3 more super chats until we get to have the second half of, the fourth quarter of this. We'll just nerd out about TTRPG stuff. So, all right, we will be back in just a few minutes. Okay. We are back. Welcome back. Maddie's ready. Maddie has...
I'm ready.
Yep.
Hooray!
Maddie even has popcorn with chopsticks.
Yeah, it's white cheddar popcorn.
And
I don't want my fingers to get dirty.
You know, that makes sense. I often eat Cheetos with chopsticks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Plus, I got these chopsticks like in Japan when I got to visit my sister, when she was stationed there, and I don't get to use them nearly often enough.
Well, I'm glad that you get to use them now. I use chopsticks almost daily.
Nice.
Yeah, chopsticks are they're one of my favorite eating utensils. There's a lot of different foods that I would much rather use chopsticks for. All right, Mixie for $5 says, vegan roll tacos consumed, drink mixed. Let's go! That sounds... You know what?
Maybe... I love that energy. Let's go!
I should make some vegan tacos. I have a whole bunch of different, like, vegan food options that I like, that I don't eat often enough. And, yeah, like... I do occasionally eat vegan food. I am more inclined to eat vegetarian, if I'm being honest. But, like, yeah. Also, it sucks that a lot of the cheapest food is neither vegan nor vegetarian.
Yeah, lentils, man.
Lentils are pretty great.
I do a mean coconut curry lentil.
So here's one of the problems, though. If I decide to make food for both me and Bent, which I don't always do, but if I do, he claims to be allergic to lentils.
Oh.
Yeah. So, okay. I tend not to stock lentils, because if I'm going to stock dried beans, it's probably going to be for, like, both of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not vegetarian, right? And I'm not vegan, right? I have no problem with but, like, I like to do a 1 meal a week kind of thing, you know?
I tend to do... I try to eat at least vegetarian more often than that, but, like, I almost certainly do it at least once a week.
Yeah.
I try to do a little bit more often than that. What I really should do is go get some tofu, because right now I've got plenty of rice, but I've also got like some bamboo shoots and water chestnuts in cans. And that with some tofu and some like green beans and carrots, that right there is a great like fried rice recipe, right? Yeah.
That is. I'd have to say I'm a full like born and raised meat and potatoes girly, you know? And so it is legitimately very difficult for me to get full on vegetarian food. And I don't know if I'm just doing it wrong, but I can eat a lot and still be starving. Not my coconut curry lentils, though. Those are really good.
It might be that you're eating too much of it as starch. Starch makes you hungry pretty fast afterwards. It doesn't stick with you.
Okay.
That's one of the reasons why a lot of Chinese food people say, like, oh, I'm still hungry. It's because it's much higher in starch than most, like, European food styles. And I'm going to take a drink from Mothra.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Oh, yeah, it's after the break. Hey, guys, I really appreciate all your support. A number of people have joined or upgraded their Patreon just this past month. It really helps. If you're interested, check out the Patreon, check out the channel memberships. You get the access to the Discord server. You get access to early access to videos. Right now, I'm like 7 months ahead with that stuff. So, like, I think it's a pretty good deal, and it also helps me out. And yeah, all right, here we go.
Animal could not exit in time. An entire herd of them. And what were they running from?
Okay, Matt, if it's the flood, then wouldn't they get washed out to sea and instead of like in a river that's still identifiable as a river? Because I was under the assumption that he was like, oh yeah, the Ice Age happened after the flood, because that's what AIG says. But if it's like a mid-flood phenomenon, then how do you have coherent rivers established and preserved through a worldwide flood that are frozen, while also you have all the energy being added to the system from all of the craters and all that ejecta? Like, this doesn't add up. Mm-hmm. Is it hot or is it cold, Matt? And if it's cold, where'd the heat go?
Where'd the heat go?
Maddie, we're only 2 super chats away and we have 11 minutes. It's possible.
Oh. You guys, I have so many TTRPG opinions. I have so many things to say.
Well, whether or not they want to hear them will be determined by whether or not we get 2 more super chats. Of the teal or higher level, by the way.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Oh, yeah, it's after the break. Hey, guys, I really appreciate all your support. A number of people have joined or upgraded their Patreon just this past month. It really helps. If you're interested, check out the Patreon, check out the channel memberships. You get the access to early access to videos. Right now, I'm like 7 months ahead with that stuff. So, like, it's possible.
Other findings in the Arctic also indicate rapid freezing. You see, it was a lush, temperate region, not a frozen wasteland.
Arctic? The Arctic? Do you mean the Antarctic?
No, he's circling an area in North America, like,
which is mostly ocean.
Well, I mean, he's circling an area where all those Canadian islands are.
Okay.
But he is right that there are remains of tropical organisms there. It's just that
sure.
There's okay. So
the landmass that is currently at the poles was not always at the poles.
Right. And the thing is, we can tell paleolatitude. It's not actually like, okay, I'm not gonna pretend it's easy to do, like you can just do it in the field. But if you're trained to establish paleolatitude, it's not like a mystery, right? Like scientists can do this. This is not something that we're like, oh no, how could we ever determine the paleolatitude of where a rock formed? We know, and yeah, North America used to be...
Really clever people have figured that out.
Right. Like, the thing is, right, like, if you want to say, okay, under my flood model, using the word model extremely generously, this is how I interpret the history of the world. Okay, you can do that, but you have to realize that because other models also have this phenomenon well explained, and in ways that we can predict where we will find such things in the future, which you can't do, Ramat. Because that's what the standard actual scientific model can do, you don't get to use this as evidence against the standard scientific model and for your model, even if your model can accommodate the data.
Yeah. You have to provide data that is for your model at the exclusion of the other.
Right. And that's not what this is. In fact, the fact that actual real scientists can predict where they will find such strata actually means that the evidence does not weigh in favor of young Earth creationism. It weighs in favor of science, because in science, if you can make successful predictions, that's very, very, very good evidence that you're right.
By the way, going back to the lunar, like going back to cratering, what if the source of all craters in the solar system was ejecta from planet Earth, my expectation would be that the rate of cratering declines relative to distance from Earth, right?
Which it does not.
If we found that, that would be a piece of evidence for your idea, but that's not what we have found.
Not even close.
Not even close.
We got a few things to read here. Let me see. Let's see. Mixie says, yes, lower your starch, increase your fiber. Also, plants are low in calories compared to meat and fat. You may need to consume more quantity. Yeah.
Okay.
That sounds pretty plausible. And then with the super chat that got us to our goal, Roshna Shards of Nanoglass Handler Keller for $4.99 says, I just woke up. Well, welcome. I did thank you at the very beginning of this, so I want to thank you again for sending me those Boston baked beans. And also, I do want to point out, so Shards of Nanoglass Handler is about Kenthoven and his diatomaceous earth. I do want to point out that there is such a thing as food-grade diatomaceous earth, which is used to absorb excess liquids in the body and whatnot. And it's very unlikely to kill you. However, it is still the case that you should wear a respirator and gloves when handling diatomaceous earth, because it will still irritate your lungs and get into your pores and irritate those as well, because it is microscopic bits of glass. Let's remember this. Then for $5, Joshua Geese says, for Maddie's TTRPG opinions. Yes.
Oh, thank you, friend.
And then My Unfinished Journey for $2.22 says, Hail Nero, Dap, and Maddie, down with not promoting. Thank you. And then the other Kent H. Holstead for $9.99 says, Matt's the kind of guy who would hear a strange sound in his house, investigate for 10 seconds, give up, sheath his weapon, and then say, must have been the wind. But did he take an arrow to the knee is the real question. Video game logic. So weird.
From an ice age that was lasting thousands of years. The evidence for this is everywhere. Baron Axel...
Matt, if it's everywhere, you would have given us something verifiable instead of, like, an obscure Soviet publication from the period when the Soviet Union was basically made biology illegal, and then another source that was a travel log from the 1850s.
Yeah.
A travel log is just fiction. Did the person go someplace? Yeah, probably. But there's literally no reason to take any travel log seriously. Roshan, Shards of Nanoglass Handler Killer, who's been a member for 18 months and is at the Tetrapod level, says Kent was passing around pool-grade diatomaceous. Yeah, which you should not just handle. It's not like it's like the most dangerous substance in the world, but you shouldn't just be putting your paws in it. You should be wearing gloves and maybe a respirator if you're going to do much with it.
Guys, you just see what I'm...
or at least a mask.
The students that I'm teaching in a chemistry lab, right? Like, they're not doing a real chemistry, right? We're handling water, right? But, like, I still do a safety brief with them every day because, like, hey, guys, we're going to have glass. If you break a piece of glass, that's totally fine. Don't panic. Just say, hey, Professor Maddie, we broke some glass. And I'll say, okay, everybody just stop. I'm going to clean it up, put it in this glass. Only contain, right? Like,
got a sharp spin.
Such good safety precautions.
Yeah. Instead, Ken's just handing around hazardous material.
Yeah, don't do that.
My Unfinished Sock for $2 says, don't forget liking and sharing. Like and share instead. Did you mean licking and sharing? Instead of like and share? Whatever, it doesn't matter. Lieutenant Matt for $4.99 says, we just need a newspaper article from the golden age of yellow journalism to finish the hat trick. Jeez, right?
Yeah.
Get something from, like, 1842 about, like, oh, and then the Confederate soldiers shot down a pterodactyl. Which is an actual thing Kent uses, by the way, is, like, a newspaper article from, like, the 18-whatevers about Confederate soldiers shooting down a pterodactyl. Which is not a thing that ever happened, in case anyone is wondering.
Heiberg Island and Ellesmere Islands have been discovered to harbor a vast array of temperate animals and vegetation.
Hey, Matt, do you know why those areas were investigated? It was because Neil Shubin and his colleagues were like, I wonder where we could find a transitional form between basal stegocephalian fish like Eusthenopteron and more modern tetrapods like, Lysamphibians or amniotes. And so they went through a survey map of, like, North America to see what areas had exposed strata of the right age from roughly the right environment. And so they found that places like Ellesmere Island had that. And so they kind of initiated the big-scale paleontological excavation. When I say big-scale, I mean only for a few months a year because it's, Arctic Canada. So, yeah, Matt, the whole reason we know about all of this stuff is because of evolutionary biology, well, paleontologists working with evolutionary theory, making predictions about the fossil record on the basis of evolutionary biology, and getting it right. When was the last time creationists said, well, because of my flood model, I suspect that this fossil will be found at this location, and so we should go dig there, and then you got it right? When did that happen? It's never. Yeah. It's literally never. Now, that's not to say that young Earth creationists don't go on fossil digs and find things. They do. But the only consistent ones that I'm aware of are either on private land that's already known to have dinosaur fossils, or it's in public land where, again, we already know that there are fossils there because of exploration from not creationists, but from scientists. So every once in a while, creationists will follow, like, swim in the wake of actual scientists and go collect fossils. That does happen. But you guys aren't leading the charge on finding new fossil sites because you don't have a model that can do it. We got Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $1.99 says Confederates in 1842. I don't actually remember what year the alleged the actual newspaper article was from, but also, like, it was a made-up news story. They didn't care.
Yeah. Okay, also, you learn about plate tectonics in, like, elementary school. Right? Like, you have to know that the current position of landmass is not where they have always been.
Which is actually well accepted by creationists themselves.
Yes!
Like, AIG thinks that the pre-flood world was like Rodinia. Not even Pangea. Yeah. Rodinia, the previous supercontinent.
Yeah. Yeah. So, by your own YEC model stuff, right, you know that island, it wasn't always in the Arctic Circle. Come on.
Which are now buried under the snow. Note that some animals recovered are burrowing animals that could not dig into rock-hard permafrost.
I mean, yeah, and it wasn't rock-hard. And also, horse, bear, beaver, badger, shrew, wolverine, these are things from when it was pretty far north, but also the climate has fluctuated. We're not at the warmest the Cenozoic has ever been. I don't know if you know this. The Cenozoic at the what is it? The Eocene thermal maximum was way warmer than it is now.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like rivaling the Jurassic in terms of global temperatures.
Yeah. The main concern for global warming right now is the rate at which we are warming is too rapid for like ecosystems to adapt.
Yeah, we're not going to get to a temperature that's higher than the Earth has ever been in the foreseeable future.
No.
The question is,
we used to have way more CO2 in the atmosphere.
Yeah. The question is,
but you know who didn't live then? Humans.
Yeah, humans or horses or you know,
any modern animals.
Yeah. And also, by pointing out that this area has lemurs and tapirs, which, first of all, no, it doesn't. It doesn't have lemurs. It doesn't have tapirs. But what it does have is primates and parasodactyls, which means that this is not from the recent past. This is from before the ice ages in our last, set of Milankovitch cycles that started the recent ice ages, started up. This is from before that. So this is probably Miocene, when there were not permanent glaciers.
Mm-hmm.
Also, bears still live up there, Rob, Matt? Just letting you know, there's still bears there. Yep.
Yeah, they're polar bears. Don't look at them sideways.
Just.
Others are cold-blooded. Large trees were also found. Even more recently, giant...
Domesticated Oldness of the Jews, Python for 200 Argentinian pesos says, fun fact, in X-Men 2, Wolverine was translated as glutton. You just reminded me. Well, so I believe the word for Wolverine in some languages has to do with the word for glutton, because Wolverines have a reputation for being absolutely ravenous when it comes to eating food. They will just keep on eating and devouring whatever they can get their hands on. In part because, they live in hard scrabble places like northern Canada, where it's not super easy to get by.
Yeah.
Camels have been found up in the north as well.
Okay. Matt, you know that camels evolved
North American camels have gone extinct. That's an animal that used to exist.
I'm going to take a drink.
Yeah.
And point out that camels evolved in North America.
That's technically true. Technically correct.
Yeah, we'll take a drink for technically correct. Camels evolved in North America. The way they got to Asia is the Bering Land Bridge. So, of course, there are camels in the Arctic. Otherwise, they couldn't have got to Asia. And also, all of these are what he thinks of as post-flood fossils. So once again, I'm confused. Is the Ice Age happening during or after the flood? Because if the previous buffalo were fleeing from floodwaters, then it's during the flood. But if camels are migrating across the Arctic, then it's after the flood.
After.
So Alex Marco says Wolverines are Arctic-flavored honey badgers. Correct.
Nice. I like that.
In fact, vast frozen, non-fossilized forests that once thrived in the...
What does it mean to be non-fossilized, Matt? Do you just mean not permineralized?
Yeah.
Olivia Williams, who's been a member for 34 months, my goodness, and is at the Tetchbot level, says, Ghidorah, French is one of those languages. Nice. Take a drink.
Nice. I'm going to drink for Ghidorah.
Mm-hmm.
Now barren Arctic Circle continue to surface as summer runoff erodes and releases the timber from the frozen muck.
Hey Matt, the fact that what is that island right there that he's got? It's the island where the last mammoths were there. Wrangel Island. Was it Wrangel Island? Whatever. It might be New Siberia Island. I don't remember which island that is that he's got circled. But anyway.
It's Bolshoi Lakhov Island.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's not what it's called in English, but Matt, the fact that an island so far into the Arctic Circle is currently having its permafrost melt, exposing these forests, I'm just going to say that should be of concern to you.
No, man.
Because that's not normal.
Climate change isn't real?
Yeah. Like, maybe Matt is low-key acknowledging climate change right here, and that's what's actually happening. I doubt it, but maybe.
Love that.
Keener R for $2 says, Raw Matt needs two reference and breaks his tradition. I mean, if he had any references that we could actually check up on instead of books from 1852.
I can't even source Raw Matt because I can't find his sources.
Yeah, that's the thing, real. Right? But they're either not real or they're so old and obscure that they're just never going to go online. And I'm not going to spend my time digging through some library for an 1852 travel log. Because you know what kind of library you would need to go to. You need to go to like a university library that has like a manuscript department. And I've done that. And I mean, I'd do it again if I really needed to. But when I needed to, it was for a big project. It's not just the kind of thing you're like on a whim, like, oh yeah, let's see what we can dig out of the rare manuscript department.
You don't just do that on a Tuesday.
Yeah. Because, okay, just to get in, you generally have to already know what you're looking for. They don't let you browse.
Right.
I don't know if you've ever been to like the manuscript department of a library, right? But they're generally they're private and they're owned by schools, right? They're not just, you go down to the public library and you go to the manuscript department. This is a school library. So for one thing, you're generally going to need to have some reason to be there. You're like, I'm a student of this professor, or I'm working on a paper with these scholars on this topic. Yeah. This is the set of works I want to look at. And then you go to like the person who is currently on duty there, and you ask that person to retrieve the documents you need, and then he or she will go into the actual area where they're keeping all this stuff and retrieve it for you and bring it into a separate room that's the only room you're allowed to be in. And before you do this, you have to go through security like it's an airport. And they only allow certain things in through the door, like pencils and notebooks and laptops. You can't generally bring in pens. You can't generally bring in bags. It's a big deal to go to these places. I've done it. It's a hassle.
I've never done that, Tapper, because my whole field is only like 100 years old.
Well, I've done I did a history thing, and one of the libraries in Boston had the collected correspondence of the figure I was researching, and so
that's awesome.
Eventually, though, I did actually get the librarian to just bring me the entire box full of like all the newspaper clippings and letters. Because I was like, I'm just going to go through these in sequence. If you want to keep getting up from your desk while I transcribe these and then hand you the next thing, you can. And eventually she was like, I'm just going to bring you the box. Because I don't want to keep doing this. I was like, all right, cool, thanks.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I was researching a guy who basically was a big part of the intellectual framework that was used to establish the Free Soil Party, which in the lead up, which during like the Emancipation period was the party that preceded the Republican Party. And the Republican Party basically was just a reorganized Free Soil Party. It kept pretty much all the ideological underpinnings of the Free Soil Party. And so I was looking at the degree to which he influenced the ideology of the Free Soil Party through his correspondence with the people who founded it. He didn't join because he himself was an anarchist, but he also was a lawyer who spent a lot of time defending people from charges of being runaway slaves. Pro bono.
Love that for him.
Mm-hmm. So, he was also one of the last prominent deists in American intellectual life.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Let's see. Dutch Mammoth never saw Snow Tunica for $2 says, do you think Matt knows about cold-adapted camels? I don't know, right? Because there are a lot of cold-adapted camels. Like, there are a lot of camels in cold places who grow thick, woolly fur. It's not like a new species. It's not that they get different species. It might be some subspecies. But, like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he does. Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $9.99 says that this is how we know the authors of the Bible didn't know about distant animals. Then we'd have the devil walking about as a roaring Wolverine, seeking whom he may devour. That would actually be a pretty cool change in the Bible there, instead of a lion, a Wolverine. Yeah. Also, it is kind of disappointing that, like, the range of the lion used to be so gigantic, and, like, it's just almost entirely gone now. Not that I want to go outside and meet a lion in the streets, to be fair. Keener R for $2 says, maybe camels walked on Oxholder Brindesicle rivers. Yeah, maybe. Maybe that's what happened. All right, Maddie. We just hit a half an hour past the hour.
It's 9:30.
It is time to... So, Maddie, let me tell you about the last thing I did with TTRPGs, which was I played a session of the Alien TTRPG on Top Hats Off, and it was a lot of fun. None of the PCs died, but we did have an NPC whose head split open and an alien crawled out of it.
Well, that's fun. That sounds like an Alien movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Dapper and pretty much everybody on this channel, you guys know I have a new TTRPG channel, right?
It's called OK
Roll. Largely features improvisers from the Oklahoma City area, improvisers and actors. A friend of mine from improv, her name is Allison. She's kind of helped me run it. We're doing monthly live streams and then about quarterly releasing edited videos of like shorter story arcs, right? So I've been in like deep and those live streams, what we've been doing, the kind of vibe is like one part reviewing indie games, but like reviewing by playing them and kind of like learning the system on stream and playing and having a little bit of low-key chill fun with it. So we just got done playing Apothecaria, Apawthecaria, but the paw is the pun there. Deborah, this is the most delightful GM-less game.
Yeah, like, it is really adorable.
It's precious.
Yeah, you're all small woodland creatures, and you're going around in a world where humans have gone extinct, apparently, and you can still find bits of their civilization here and there. And it's a lot of fun, or at least it looks a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah. It was super fun. It'd be really easy to play asynchronously with friends.
That's a good idea too.
I'm glad you watched, right?
Yeah, well, it was fun.
Yeah, I appreciate your support, friend. So what other TTRPG? So I've been deep in the Kids on Bikes, like extended universe. I really like how flexible that is for a really narrative play.
That's taken
have you
a lot
played much Kids on Bikes?
I haven't. I actually have a similar game, at least thematically, that I'm looking to play sometime, which is the Tales from the Loop TTRPG, based on the Tales from the Loop's art book by Simon Stålenhag.
Nice.
Yeah. I actually have I have the main rule book, and I think I have one set of scenarios that's supposed to be like a 4 in-game year-long campaign. And if I remember correctly, it's also the book that forgets that like Scandinavia and the Mojave Desert have different birds. Because it's like, if you want to set this setting in Nevada, just make these changes. And it never mentions the fact that all the birds referenced, because birds are a major part of the plot, that like all of them are birds from Northern Europe and not from the Mojave Desert. And it's like, so then the seagull and the like this swallow and this like hawk that only lives in like Norway or something. And it's like, that's I'm gonna need to change those. We have a super chat for 5 is it Brazilian reals? Is that what it is? I'm gonna go with that, I think. Jill's Uband Damaged OC says, sorry, but where it says vestigial organs are organs that change function, all of my professors say that organs that stopped function. So what source? I think I understand what you're going for. There does seem to be a little bit of a language barrier. But vestigial means that it no longer functions for the function which is typical of that organ in the wider taxon to which the organism belongs. So, for instance, snake pelvies and whale pelvies have ceased to function as supports for weight-bearing limbs. They no longer function in locomotion in any significant way. They do function a little bit in terms of locomotion as a pivot point in whales, but they're still not supporting limbs. Unless, like, do you want a specific, like, book that I can cite? Because I don't have one handy. But, like, you can look at the things that, are said to be vestigial pretty universally by biologists and anatomists. And yeah, almost none of them have zero function. But they don't have the function for which that organ evolved and is still used by the majority of the clade. So, for instance, penguin flippers are vestigial as wings. They're vestigial wings because you can't use them to fly, but they are still useful. So I don't know what source you would like. I mean, if you want, you can email me and we can have a chat about this, and I can then have time to do things like collect sources. If you want, I'm
also that'd be a really, if you mentioned a professor in your chat, and that would be a really great question for your professor, right? Like, can you be, because I'm assuming your professor is like a biologist, right? So they might have even better access to like specific technical in the field sources.
Yeah. Feel free to email me, by the way. It's the.dapper.dino.yt@gmail.com. If that's hard for you, it is in my about page on my channel page. You do have to click through the thing that says that this is a business inquiry. You asking me this question is enough of a business inquiry that I'm perfectly comfortable with you clicking that button that says that this is for, business purposes. And yeah, we can set something up. But yeah, Kids on Bikes, from what I understand, is also sort of a nostalgia-driven, like kids in the '80s type simulator.
Yeah, it's almost a Stranger Things simulator. If you play it like rules as written. But what I have found I really, really like about it is its adaptability to genre. So the basic idea of Kids on Bikes is you have 6 stats that you assign a die value from, so one stat gets a D4, the next gets a D6, up to the D20, right? And then and so the baseline stats are like brains, brawn, fight, flight, charm, and grit. And then on top of that, you generally get 3 strengths, which are things you're good at. And so you can get like lucky, which is like you can spend 2 adversity tokens to reroll any stat check. But what's nice about the system, there's only 6 rolls your GM can ask for. You can only roll those 6 things, right? And then all the GM ever has to do is set the difficulty, right? And then you roll and see if you hit it. Okay. There's a few other things that go on with it. One is anytime you fail a roll, you get an adversity token, and you can then spend an adversity token 1-to-1 to increase the value of a die roll. So that's nice. And it's also nice because then adversity tokens, so then like failure doesn't feel as bad in this game, which is kind of nice.
There's a couple of quick things. Jill's said something about there it is. Oh, now makes sense, or now makes more sense. Thank you very much. So thank you. I'm glad that could clear it up. Keener R for $2 with their 3rd super chat on the channel says, J.R.R. Tolkien's orcs hate language, AIG hates more. Thank you. You know what? We'll take a drink. I don't know. That's fine.
I'm taking a drink for that. Yeah. Oh my gosh, speaking of orcs, I've been watching this delightful I discovered something about myself, Dapper. Sorry, this isn't TTRPG related. But like I don't really watch like reality TV, right? Like I don't watch The Real Housewives. But do you know what I devour on YouTube and will spend hours of my life watching? Is infinite loop of reaction videos between like Dr. Josh and Kip.
Yeah.
Right? And Apologia, and then like biblical apologists, right? And I was explaining this to my sister, and it dawned on me that like, oh, this is my reality TV.
Mm-hmm.
This is my like they're all throwing shade at each other, delicious drama. I just like it when biblical scholars go at apologetics folks.
That reminds me, I probably shouldn't because there's not much of a connection, but well, actually the connection is because people have asked me if I have beef with this person as a result of disagreeing with them about certain parts of the Bible. But right now it looks like the plan is that I'm going to be on MC Toon's show on Thursday. So,
oh, cool.
Yeah. And every once in a while people ask me if I have beef, because sometimes if I'm pointing out that, if you take the Bible literally, it says that the earth is flat. And like, he doesn't agree. I'm like, he doesn't. I think he's wrong. And it's not just me who thinks he's wrong. You know, Dr. Josh Bowen thinks he's wrong. Kip Davis thinks he's wrong. Dan McClellan thinks he's wrong. So when I say I think he's wrong, I'm like, and the people who know the most about the Bible also think he's wrong. But also, who cares? You know what I don't base who I have beef with? Who has a disagreement with me about the meaning of Isaiah 40? Like, that's not one of my criteria for who I have beef with. I disagree with almost everyone I talk to about something or other.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what it is with Maddie, but I'm sure I disagree with Maddie about something.
Probably. It's probably like, what's the best episode of Star Trek or something like that?
In the Pale Moonlight.
In the Pale Moonlight? Wait. That's a DS9 episode, right?
It sure is.
Yeah, that's the one where Nog loses his leg?
No, that's the one where they assassinate the Romulan senator.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Although the whole Nog losing his leg and going through PTSD arc is one of the best character arcs in Star Trek.
It's so good. I actually, it might be my favorite episode of Star Trek, but it's definitely my favorite episode of DS9 is the one where Jake and Dr. Bashir get trapped behind enemy lines. Not behind enemy lines, but like they're at a field hospital on the front lines with when they're at war with the Klingons.
And Jake is like is doing like a reporter thing.
Yeah, Jake is doing a reporter thing, but it's a Jake episode, and it's a sci-fi red badge of courage, right? It's a reflection on the nature of courage and bravery, and what that means, like what that means, like in the heat of battle.
That reminds me, guess who's gonna be in the next Star Trek TTRPG game?
Jake?
Well, no, you.
Me? Oh yeah, me. Sorry. I'm sorry. I thought we were talking about like a new book was gonna come out and it was gonna have like more or something.
No, like you, Maddie. You're gonna be playing a character.
Maddie.
Yeah.
You're
gonna be our ship's chief
really
engineer.
Excited.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm gonna be playing a Betazoid. Listen, Betazoid middle-aged woman, the tallest hair, with mini scarves, chief engineer. Gloriana Dulas, and Gloriana believes really heartily that a good running ship comes from a well-running crew.
The fun is mandatory.
The fun is mandatory. Talking about our feelings is required. Because how could you possibly do repairs if like you're distracted by your relationship problems? I want to hear about them. I want to help you.
Lieutenant Fitz of Rage
to help you realize your best self.
Lieutenant Fitz of Rage Ghost says, is that where a Romulan upper brass pretended to be someone pretending to be himself? No, that is not that one. This is the one where they're trying to get the Romulans on side for the war, and so they fake a data crystal. But the Romulan senator discovers it's a fake, but Garrick has the shuttle rigged to explode. And also, this is all spoilers for a show that came out in the 90s. If you had wanted to watch it, you should have already done so. But on TTRPG stuff, so let's see. What else? What are some other games that you're thinking about running that you haven't run yet?
Okay. I am about to run a game. I'm starting this weekend. I'm running a game of Never Stop Blowing Up, which is a adaptation of Kids on Bikes. Like I said, I've been on a Kids on Bikes kick.
I think I'm helping you a little bit with that.
You absolutely are. Yeah, you're making a map. It's gonna be great. And I've been writing so this Never Stop Blowing Up game is going to be absolute chaos improv, right? Nuts. Because it's just, listen, are we going to blow up the moon? I don't know. We could try.
One real quick, Keener R for $2 says, that would have been one way of having a surprise guest. Yeah, if I just had Jake Sisko, that'd be fun.
That'd be great. Yeah, get the actual actor that played him. That'd be amazing.
I don't think I can afford him.
Yeah.
Avery Brooks, that'd also be a pretty good get.
That'd be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I definitely can't afford Avery Brooks. Guys, tell you what. Donate a few $1,000s, and I'll see what I can do about getting Avery Brooks to appear in an episode of my Star Trek show.
Yeah, maybe we can. Is Avery Brooks on Cameo? Can we get a cameo?
He probably is. But the thing is with Cameo, like it's so short.
Yeah.
And I would want him for like an episode.
Maybe you could get him to read the like, I'm Avery Brooks, and this is Star Trek name of Star Trek Endurance. You know, like.
Yeah. All right. So things keep exploding.
Yeah. Yeah, so games I've been really interested in recently are also like GM-less and solo games.
Okay.
So I've gotten super into playing on my own Death of the Author. Listen, I bought a whole bundle from itch.io as a like trans rights bundle thing. And this was in that pack. And so Death of the Author, it's a solo journaling game where you are a character like in a story fighting for agency against your author.
Okay. Who is also you?
Who is also you, but driven by draws from a tarot deck.
Interesting. We got a couple super chats. Keener R with their 5th super chat on the channel for $2 says, sorry, I meant Maddie finding she was the guest. Oh yeah, if that was like the first you heard. Oh. Like, hey Maddie, you're in the next game. Surprise!
Yeah, surprise. No, I've already made Gloriana. She's great. I don't own enough scarves, like ascots. And listen, when I was in the actual Navy, one of my favorite things about being a woman in the Navy and a woman in the nuclear Navy was that no one in charge of me was actually aware of female uniform standards. And we're all too nervous and uncomfortable to ask or look it up. And so that's amazing. An energy I'm waiting for Gloriana to channel.
I gotta tell you, there might be a few people on the crew who do know those regs and might be willing to challenge it.
I love that. Listen, I love it, but she's gonna have a lot of scarves.
Our female Trill XO who carries a mek'leth around with her might have something to say.
Love that. Listen, I'm stoked. Gloriana is like a less horny Deanna's mom, right?
Well, it would be hard to be more horny.
It would be. Yeah. Like if Deanna's mom was a real intense cat lady, that is Gloriana.
Maybe she's just not old enough because apparently the libido ramps up as Trill women age.
Yeah, maybe.
That was an episode of...
she's like, in my mind, she's like in her 40s.
That was a whole episode of Lower Decks, wasn't it? Where there was a whole episode of Lower Decks where like a trio of Trill women come on and they're all... Or not Trill, sorry. Betazoid women come on the Cerritos. Yeah. And it gets a little wild because the psychic influence of all the horniness extends to the rest of the crew.
Yeah.
Shauna Bradford for $5 redo says, just a good morning and a glorious morning it is. From the goldfields of Western Australia. Well, thank you. And it's very rare that we actually get someone from Australia who's awake and ready to watch one of these streams. So I really do appreciate it. Actually, I have some games that I would like to run.
Yeah, what are you looking at?
So, like I said, Tales from the Loop is definitely on there. One thing I like is that it doesn't have a level up mechanic. It has you aged a year mechanic, and so you get an extra stat point. And you lose a point of luck. So the younger you are, overall, the lower rolls you're going to make, but you can influence those rolls with those luck points. And as you get older, you get mechanically better at your rolls, but less able to influence them. So your character just kind of changes as you go. It also has a rule that like the kids just don't die, because it's not that kind of game. They can get trapped, they can get injured, they can become lost, you can go on a mission to rescue them, something like that, but they're not going to die because that's not the kind of game it is. A very different kind of game that I'm looking at running is Wrath and Glory. And I already have 2 people who are interested, and the setup for the Wrath and Glory... So Wrath and Glory, in case you don't know, is one of the 2 currently being published and active Warhammer 40,000 TTRPGs. And so... the scenario I'm looking to do is that we're going to be a group of people working for the Adeptus Ministorum, or the Ecclesiarchy, investigating reports of various miracles around the system to see if they're actually miracles from the Emperor or some kind of vile heresy that needs to be purged.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or maybe people are just wrong and nothing extraordinary happened. There was just a weird coincidence. That is also a possibility, right? So, a little bit of an investigation, some combat, some exploration, that kind of thing. And one of the things I do like is the previous set of TTRPGs for Warhammer 40k tried to emulate the feeling of 40k by making the stats basically just the stats from the then current edition of the game times 10 and using a percentile, right? So it's very easy to convert stats from the tabletop to the game. This game instead goes with, what's it feel like to play 40k? And one of the big answers to that is you have things that you move around on a battlefield and you pick up fistfuls of 6-sided dice and you roll them. So this game uses, instead of like trying to simulate like the math behind the game, it's more of a, hey, we're going to have you throw fistfuls of dice, and 4s and 5s are going to be 1 success, 6s are going to be 2 successes, and you have a success number, and if you have enough successes, then you succeed. And it also has a mechanic where if you have 6s, and you could still succeed without that 6, you can, instead of using it to hit your success number, do what they call shifting, and use it to gain like extra damage, or an extra effect, or a meta currency that you can use later on in the game, or something like that. So I like that idea. Nicholas Brody for $4.99 says, I would pay good money to watch people use the Star Trek TTRPG to play out John Scalzi's red shirts. that would be...
I have read that book, and it's great.
Yeah, that would actually be pretty fun. And we kind of did in one episode of Star Trek Lexington, where we had a lower decks game, where instead of everyone playing their main characters that they normally play, they all played supporting characters that either had already been used or were newly made for that session that were low ranked, and we basically just didn't have the main cast in it hardly at all. So that was actually a lot of fun. And in fact, there is actually a lower decks source book for if you want to do like a campaign focused on low ranking people in Starfleet, and it is based on the lower decks game. However, it is for the first edition of the game, and they did recently release the core rulebook for the second edition. They're mostly compatible, is what I'll say. But one thing is that the species options from the second edition are mechanically more powerful than they are in the first edition. And we are using the first edition for the next Star Trek game, mostly because that's the one I have the books for, and I still want to run the campaign from the first edition campaign book, and I don't want to do the work of converting it. So, yeah. So let's see. I think that's it for ones I currently want to run. At some point, I'd love to run some Vassan. That'd be a lot of fun. I have the core rule book, and I have a little card deck that has the various Vassan, which are the creatures you investigate. Because it's sort of it's sort of like a Norwegian, like Gaslamp X-Files, where like the idea is that there's these supernatural entities, and not everyone can see them, but you can. And they can cause problems here and there, and so you go out into the world to investigate them. And the game also, by default, assumes that you have somehow come into ownership of a mansion that you're going to use as your base of operation, and it has mechanics for upgrading it so that you can like build a library and get books full of like arcane lore and do other stuff, like maybe get a workshop so you can build better weapons or something. And so like you upgrade your base of operations, and and it's primarily an investigation thing, and the goal is not like, oh, you have to kill all the Vassan. It's because a lot of them, like, you're not going to kill them, but you might be able to get them to stop causing problems by negotiating with them.
Yeah. Okay. So I have to say, because I am at my heart a Critical Role fangirly, right? So please don't judge me too hard. So I have, let me grab it off my shelf. I have the Candela Obscura like source book.
And that's the one that has like the world for Critical Role, isn't it?
The what? Sorry?
The setting that Critical Role uses?
Yeah. So this isn't set in like Exandria. This is Candela Obscura.
Oh, okay, maybe.
They did a bunch of Candela Obscura like little short 3-episode stories. And set in, so Candela Obscura comes with a specific world, which is not my favorite, right? Like I don't want you to tell me where I'm supposed to play this, you know? I like especially if it's not like if I'm gonna play a Star Trek TTRPG, I'm gonna set it in the Star Trek universe, obviously.
Right.
But like this is like this world is interesting, but it's eldritch horror and there's some cool mechanics in it. So I do like, and I am actually thinking of a Candela Obscura game set on a submarine.
Ooh.
Which I have thoughts about. Because listen, they establish something on Critical Role, which is if you pass through a barrier, if you pass through the veil, like things catch on fire and or not they don't catch on fire, but they are like destroyed in a wave of heat and light. And my engineer brain went like, that sounds like a power source to me.
You can make an engine out of that.
And so I'm like, yeah, so I have thoughts of what to do if we think of like, hey, if I force an object through the veil, the object is destroyed and it creates heat. If that's true, what else is true? Right. So I have a thought of that.
Can I use it to boil water? And if the answer is yes, then I can power things. Look, if you talk to an engineer and you allow them to boil water, they can do just about anything else you want, as long as you can boil enough water in enough time. Yeah.
But there are other rule set for Daggerheart. So here's my thoughts about Daggerheart, because I do think so Daggerheart is full theater kid vibes, right? It's like, listen, I don't think D&D 5e it's not crunchy, right?
It's crunchier than some games, but no, overall, like especially compared to like 3.5, it's not crunchy at all.
Yeah, or even compared to like, I love Pathfinder. I love the crunch.
Pathfinder basically is 3.5, so yes.
Yeah. And even Pathfinder First Edition is crunchier than Second Edition. And I do kind of love Second Edition of Pathfinder. It's got enough crunch for me, but also enough like streamlined stuff that you can play it efficiently and you're not going to get bogged down by the crunch. So like Daggerheart is like no crunch. It's just Jello. But there is a mechanic in it that I really, really, really like, which for like creative and narrative play, right? And that is part of character creation and a part of leveling up. There is proper level up, but it doesn't feel quite the same as like D&D or Pathfinder level up. But you have a phrase, and I forget what they call it in game, right? But the idea is these are I almost want to say it's like your catchphrase, but no, it's a phrase that describes something that is like important to you, and then you can invoke that phrase for mechanical benefits. Okay. So my first thought was like, if I was a wizard, and it's like a +2 or something like that, right? Like, if I was a wizard, a phrase I might have would be like, my books! And so I could use that anytime, I could imagine increasing my defense by like holding my books up, and so it's, so the type of table. So, okay, there's a table that plays Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, right? And
we're almost at the end, so you gotta make it quick.
Okay, so there's a table where like D&D 5e, like they would love transitioning to Daggerheart and hate Pathfinder, right? Or the table's the other way around, right? Where 5e like might be more of a middle ground. All right, that's my Daggerheartness. I like that specific mechanic of the creativeness of your like phrases.
Olivia Williams for $6.99 Beaverbucks says, "Want crunch? Try Shadowrun." Yeah, that's a pretty crunchy game.
I've heard that's crunchy.
Lieutenant Math Navigator for $4.99 says, "Bill Wirt's voice. You can make an engine out of this." Yeah, you can. There's like a whole trope of like, if D&D rules were actually part of a real like world, the world would not look like the average D&D world, and it wouldn't. It's true. There's a lot of stuff like if the spell create food and water or food and drink or whatever, was as common as it seems to be in D&D in a real world, you wouldn't need things like farms and whatnot. Or at least you certainly would never have a famine. Right?
Yeah.
Because you would approach the cleric and you'd be like, hey, can you cast this 4 times for us, please? Over the course of the next few days? Or this, like, today? And feed these, like, you know, this village? I'm like, yeah, of course I can. Or, like, you're in a world where, like, you can bring the dead back and you can heal grievous injuries, like, instantly. Like, murder investigations would be completely different. Hospitals would be completely different.
I have a D&D character who's a paladin in my brain who, like, I don't know if I'll ever get to play her in a campaign, but she's, like, the idea is, like, she's part of a holy order, who are really practical clerics, right? They run around enchanting people's wells with purify water, with purify food and drink, right?
I like that.
Yeah. Their, inner city mission just casts daylight every day to prevent rickets.
All right. Well, we do have to start wrapping up. So, Maddie, what is next for you in terms of channels that you are a part of or own?
Yeah, so tomorrow night I'm going to be on Creation Myths with Dr. Dan. He is in need. Listen, Dr. Dan is doing the Lord's work these days. He's been doing like why being trans is perfectly biologically like normal. You know what I mean? He's fighting the pseudoscience left, right, and center. So tomorrow night we will be ranking our favorite Bluey episodes in a tier ranking system.
Okay.
to give him a little bit of a brain break.
Very important work right there.
Yeah, and so if you need a good low key, calm, low stakes YouTube stream tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Central, I'll be over on Creation Myths. We'll be ranking Bluey episode.
Nice.
And then
sorry.
We're also OK Roll is releasing on Sundays. So the first episode is out, and then there's 2 more episodes of our first filmed in person and then edited series of Crash Panda's Prohibition. That's over on OK Roll.
Awesome. Oh, Keener R for $2 says, methinks you'd enjoy Grungeon Master, Dapper. You say that like I don't enjoy Grungeon Master. I don't watch all of his videos, but when there's one that, you know, piques my interest, I liked his one about rust monsters. That was really fun. Yeah. So, let's see. What is coming up here on this channel? So, on Thursday, there's a couple things. One is that I have a video premiering at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, which is Hovind X Biddle, because
I'm excited for that one.
Yeah, Kent Hovind invited Dan Biddle from Genesis Apologetics on. And the thing is, Dan Biddle is one of the few creationists who actually has a significant, like moneyed ministry, who can rival Kent Hovind in terms of saying insane things. In fact, I would argue that he often rivals flat earthers in saying insane things. He really gives... The thing is, the big difference between him and Raw Matt is Dan knows what English words generally mean, and he's capable of citing a source.
Oh my gosh.
But they also say similarly absurd things. My favorite Dan Biddle thing, which he really, really pushes, is that according to science, according to Dan, all of the dinosaur fossils, all of them, were killed directly by the Chicxulub impactor.
Sweet baby Jesus.
Yeah. The fact that it's 177 or so million years worth of time, according to science, during which dinosaurs were living and dying and breeding and mating and eating and pooping and all that. Nope. He thinks that literally all of them are supposed to have been killed by the asteroid. Because when he hears an asteroid kills off the dinosaurs, he thinks, well, then that means all dinosaur fossils were caused by this. Because that's what killed the dinosaurs and their dinosaurs, therefore they died from the asteroid. Which is... Wow. It's so far from...
a dumb take.
Yeah, it's an absurdly dumb thing. And then he says, isn't it more reasonable that they all died in the flood? And it's like, okay, first, no. And second, no one thinks that anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's Dan Biddle. That's on Thursday. Then later on, I think it's at like 8 Pacific. I would have to double check. I should be on with MC Toon And Toon has asked me to bring some of the stuff that I normally respond to. So I found a CMI speaker that I had not been familiar with earlier, and I cut down one of his talks so that I cut out all the stuff where he's just like, here's my interpretation of this Bible verse. I don't really care about his interpretation of this Bible verse. I also cut out the stuff where he's like, buy these CMI projects so you'll be ready to defend your faith. I cut out the commercials too.
Yeah. No, thank you.
Yeah. So I cut out that stuff because I don't have anything to say about that other than I don't recommend you buy CMI products, and I don't care what he thinks the Bible verse says. But yeah, so the idea is supposed to be we're gonna go through some of that. Because when Toon and I discussed this, he said, I don't know hardly anything about any of these topics, but like you know so much about these topics, and yeah, I think that would be a fun thing to talk about. So yeah, that's what the plan is for Thursday. Then Friday, at 6 Pacific, I believe, 9 Eastern, we're going to be doing part 2 of Alien Chariot of the Gods TTRPG cinematic mode play. So in case you don't know, cinematic mode is it's like a one shot, although it often takes 2 to 3 sessions to actually complete the scenario. And the idea is not that these characters will continue on from there. And so the game in cinematic mode is much more open to player versus player conflict. Not always combat necessarily, although yes, combat so too, but just players not always working together, sometimes being at odds. And then once some significant player-to-player conflict happens, one of those players will then start playing a different character so that it doesn't have to persist and cause bad blood throughout the whole thing. And it usually provides you with a bunch of NPCs who are fully statted out as player characters for people to play as after something like that happens, or after a character dies. So it also is very open to having PCs die, because then you can just play one of the other NPCs.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to simulate the feeling of watching a movie. So, and, in movie, the main characters don't always get along. They don't always work together. They sometimes have secret agendas. Sometimes one of them is secretly a robot.
Yeah, and in alien movies, they die.
Yeah, they die a lot. So that's going to be the second part.
I played in a Mothership one-shot you ran, and I died immediately.
Yeah, you did. Vishanti didn't, though. She managed to live through the whole thing.
She sure did.
As the android. But yeah, so it's got me, it's got Zerulon, it's got Necro, it's a Rubik's. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of people who you might recognize, whether from just being in the community or is, people who've been in my previous shows. So that's Friday. Then Saturday, as far as I know, Kip will be back and Vishanti will be back, and we will take a look at Bodhi's book. And I think we're getting close to the end of that because his chapters are getting smaller and also more about just like, I think the Bible actually means this, to which we just say, okay, Bodhi. Like one of his chapters was like, Noah's sons weren't triplets. I was like, okay, I don't disagree with you that they weren't triplets in the narrative.
Love that journey for you.
Yeah, thanks for this 3-page chapter that says nuh-uh about Noah's sons being triplets. To be fair, he did actually cite Bible verses that indicate that they're of different ages. So like, yeah, in the narrative they're not. But yeah, so that's what's going to be
cosplaying as an academic.
It's wild.
Is wild. It is a wild adventure.
I can't tell you how many times we've been told that Josephus was a 1st century Jewish historian. So
what blows my mind in that, and then I'll shut up and we can end. But Bodhi, like libraries exist. You could check out an academic book and read it and learn the style.
You're assuming that he's actually capable of actually adopting that style after just being exposed to it through a book. I don't think that's the case.
Wild.
Yeah. I mean, look, how about this? Here's an example. Joseph Smith was very familiar with the King James Version of the Bible, and he tried to ape its style with the Book of Mormon, and he's failed spectacularly in many instances.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it would take more than that for Bodhi to actually be good at academic writing. But hey, next Tuesday should be Jackson with Jackson, where we're going to take a look once again at young Jackson. Bad Jackson, that is. Where it was, I think it's from
Jackson.
Yeah, it's from like the early aughts or something, and he's still got like his dark curly hair and is on an even lower resolution than normal because that man is allergic to appearing in front of any kind of high definition image capturing device. But yeah, And that gets us out to about a week from now. So thank you very much. Make sure you hit like, subscribe if you haven't. And please do take a look at the Patreon and the channel memberships and see if that's something you're interested in. Because, I mean, YouTube is very, very uneven. My income from the YouTube channel itself can fluctuate hundreds of dollars, even close to $1,000 from month to month, which is tough. But the degree to which Patreon fluctuates is significantly lower. So it's easier to budget if people are supporting me there. But hey, don't support me if you can't afford it. Please don't. Take care of you and yours first. I should be an entertainment expense. I hope to see all of you on Thursday twice. So bye, everybody. Hey, before you leave, I just want to take a second to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or above. Van Tovend, Furgevara, Tapioca Weasel, Whispers, Max Cherry, North Texas Fossils, John Ackerman, Strawberry Vein, Dr. Tapioca Weasel, Elleron Teller, Ian Chen, Kelvin Brostek von Mennen, Landon Knoll, Mabbity Babbity, Sphincter of Doom, and Volus. It's because of my channel members and patrons whom you're seeing on screen that this channel can stay afloat. Without you, it would all shut down. If you want to join the team, there's a link to join the channel below this video, and there's a link to join the Patreon in the description. On the Patreon, you can get a 10% discount for pledging annually, and either way, you get early access to virtually all of my scripted videos, often 3 to 5 months before they come out for the general public. Thanks for watching.